Transmissions, written by Georgy Pleece. Defaced.
The following recording is the confession of Mr. Edward Taylor, aged 23. Taylor was charged with the murder of Mr. Osmond Curtis, 24, who was found in a warehouse near Croydon. The body was found with depressed fractures to the back of the skull, as well as some severe mutilation. Specifically, the victim's palms had suffered third-degree burns from a hot iron, and the face had been flayed or removed with skin. The coroner reported at the inquest that these had been made to the body prior to death, with the cause of death being loss of blood. This recording was taken from inside Woodhall Prison, Buckinghamshire, on the 15th of March 2019.
It was the town I used to tag. You can still see my tag on the old railway bridge. It was Doc with a K, as in like doctor. Meant it to be a middle finger to my teachers because they would always tell me I would never get the grades to be a doctor. We went to school together, me and him. He was my best mate at the time, you know, and we pretty much ran that school when we were 16. Fucking kings of the castle and that. Thinking we're proper hard, smoking behind the school canteen and that. We would bunk off and go tagging. His tag was Oz, like his name, because he couldn't get enough of his fucking name everywhere. Honestly, he was like some sort of Rottweiler pissing on everything he saw. Corner shops, the school, even his own fucking house. Nut job he was, always was going to be. He'd do anything to get his way, cheat when we'd play Wembley or five-a-side and that. Wasn't good with rules. I remember once he stole a scalpel from school and stuck it in our art teacher's tyre when he got a detention. Not saying I weren't a little shit as well, but he was always the ringleader. Like he was the one who would get in the most trouble, you know? I think he just liked hearing his name, getting taken out of classes and that, being taken to the head teachers, you know. It was like he was treated like royalty in a weird way. He weren't used to saying no. Not ever. I used to look up to him so fucking much. Like at the time it was like me and him versus the world, you know? Our little gang with him leading the way and we wouldn't give a fuck about anyone else. It was like absolute freedom when it seemed like there was nothing for us in the world. But yeah, he was never good at saying no. He got exactly what he wanted, right? We sort of fucked everything up one week. So, right, he'd sometimes nick his older brother's Subaru, and we would drive it up to the green and smoke on Saturdays and that. But on this Saturday there was this massive party. Some posh girl from school was holding, right? And we had to go, of course, so he drove us there, you know? We weren't liked, but we were big names at school and they would let us in and that, you know? He didn't want to lose his place in the food chain sort of thing. Anyway, we were there for a bit, selling tea to kids, telling them it was weed and that, getting wavy. You know how everyone at those school parties is just acting like they're proper lashed even though they've only had 2 becks? I lose him for a while. Says he was gonna neck some bird, the usual. But then 10 minutes later, he's rushing out fucking fuming like because this girl had laughed in his face sort of thing, you know? I'd never seen him like that. Didn't know what to do really. We just sort of sat there in his Subaru, looking like proper mugs, you know? After that he seemed different. For a few weeks he was like proper quiet, not talking to me or to anyone really. He would just sit at the back of the classes, silent. I thought like, fuck, he's gonna change, you know? Like straight edge sort of. Then we're walking down the corridor right after science one day and he seems sort of normal, you know? Until this girl walks past us in the corridor and he turns to her, he says, "You fucking bitch." And then before you know it, he's taken a bottle of acid out of his pocket and he throws it at her. At my sister. See, she hadn't told me, but she'd gone to that party with her mates. She was 2 years younger than me, but she always looked older than she was. Wore a lot of makeup then to look older, that sort of thing. Didn't need it, she was pretty, everyone always thought she was pretty. I just couldn't understand what I was watching. The smell of it, the sound of her, my little sister screaming, it made my bones go cold, you know? It was like melting wax. All because she'd laughed at him, ruined his fucking name. We moved school not long after that. My sister didn't really leave the house that much after. She'd lost who she was, you know? Like I didn't just physically ruin her, she never recovered from it mentally. I think he did some time in juvie, but I never thought it was enough. I never used his name in court, you know. That was on purpose. I think almost from that moment that I watched my sister scream, I knew that eventually I would have to kill him, you know. It was a good thing I looked up to him so well, you know. Like I remembered everywhere in town where we would tag our names. I made sure I cleaned this off before I done him in. When I saw him again, you know, he looked the same. Wearing the same white windbreaker that he thought looked so cool, it was like he wasn't real, you know? I burned that windbreaker as I watched him bleed. Of course you could still sort of tell who he is even without all the things, but he was gone. I know what I'm guilty of. Suppose I was his accomplice in a weird way, you know? Or he was mine. Either way, that's the way it works, isn't it? He's almost completely gone from the earth. And in time, I just wait now for everyone to forget who he was. Then I can die happy.
Recording ends at 14:08 on the 50th.
Princess Khumalo played the inspector. Callum Sheridan-Lee played Taylor.